What if our most ancient foundational text isn't a book of faith, but a technical manual? What if Genesis isn't a creation myth at all, but an installation guide for a planetary operating system? Today, we're diving into a really radical idea that reframes the Bible as the source code for reality itself. Let's get into it. We've all heard this line a million times, right? But let's try reading it differently, not as a theologian, but as a programmer. What if in the beginning isn't just poetry, but a literal timestamp? T equals 0. What if this isn't a statement of faith, but the very first line of code that executed the Big Bang? And that brings us to this idea called P-Summot. It's a framework, a kind of decoder ring, that translates the Bible's ancient language into the language of modern science. The core idea here is that this text is actually one unified technical document, describing the creation, the crash, and the eventual reboot of a universal operating system. So, here's our game plan. First, we're going to reread the source code, basically translating the Genesis creation protocol and the system crash that's described in Revelation. Then, we'll go looking for the hardware this whole system might be running on, see what it means for our own minds, and wrap up with a pretty massive question about reality itself. The whole premise of PSMOD is that the Bible isn't just a jumble of stories. It's a coherent chronicle that seems to anticipate some of our most advanced scientific breakthroughs. We're talking cybernetics, quantum mechanics, even general relativity. It's a total paradigm shift in how you read this text. So the very first step in this translation is to update our terms. God becomes the prime universal intelligence, or PUI for short. This completely reframes the old metaphor. Newton might have imagined a divine clockmaker, but this is a cosmic programmer, the architect of the entire system. And that one simple shift changes absolutely everything. Okay, so let's get into the specifics. How on earth does the story of creation map onto a technical protocol? Well, P-Summot lays it out as a systematic, almost algorithmic, step-by-step process for booting up a planetary biosphere. And this is where it gets really fascinating. You see this direct, one-to-one translation. Genesis 1:1, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, just becomes, at time equals 0, the Big Bang event occurs. Heaven isn't some place up in the clouds, it's the expanding space-time manifold. And earth, that's the primordial matter matrix, all the raw potential, all the energy and mass of the universe ready to go. And this model just keeps on working for the rest of creation. Take day 3. The command, "and let the dry land appear," suddenly sounds like a super concise description of plate tectonics and continental drift, right? A hugely complex geological process just summed up in a single command line. The whole 7-day sequence is like that. Short, simple commands executing these vast, intricate physical processes. So where do we fit in? Well, we are the crucial point in this whole creation protocol. The line, "let us make man in our image," suggests we're like a fractal version of the UPY itself. And that command to have dominion, it isn't about exploitation, it's our function. Our job description, we are the designated system administrators for planet Earth. But of course, every great operating system seems to have a critical vulnerability. In this model, the fall of man gets reframed as the first big system crash. The serpent isn't a snake, it's an adversarial algorithm, a bit of malware, basically, that introduces a feedback loop of doubt, corrupting the link between the administrator, us, and the prime architect. So let's jump from the beginning of the book all the way to the end. Because if Genesis is the system installation guide, then the book of Revelation is the protocol for a catastrophic system failure and a complete top-to-bottom reboot. Just look at this. The apocalyptic visions get decoded into concepts that sound chillingly modern. The beast system becomes a global AI governance, a kind of biodigital control grid. The fall of Babylon? That's a total crash of the financial grid. And the New Jerusalem isn't some golden city in the sky. It's a whole new simulation running on hyperdimensional physics. And the climax of this whole protocol is what's called the Omega point. It's that moment the prime administrator finally steps in to reinitialize the entire system. And in this context, the terrifying lake of fire gets a cold technical definition. It's the permanent deletion of corrupted or incompatible data packets, or what the old text called souls. So, okay, we've got the software, this incredibly detailed OS, from Genesis to Revelation. But what about the hardware? I mean, is there anything in modern physics that could possibly support a reality like this?
Well, one potential answer is this idea of a quantum superfluid, or QSF. This theory suggests that the universe isn't just empty space with stuff floating in it. Instead, everything is made of a single underlying substance, a cosmic superfluid. It helps to think of it like a vast, invisible ocean that fills everything.
In this model, gravity isn't even a fundamental force. It's just an emergent property, like ripples and currents in that cosmic ocean. And get this, some theorists believe this superfluid could actually be the physical substrate for consciousness itself. In other words, our very minds might be part of the fundamental fabric of the universe. And that's the perfect bridge. Because if we are living inside a programmed reality, and it's running on a quantum substrate that might itself be conscious, what on earth does that mean for our societies, for our own psychology, and for the artificial minds we're building right now? If we go way back to the 17th century, Thomas Hobbes described the state as a leviathan, an artificial man. He saw our collective social structures as this bigger, more powerful entity that we ourselves built. That's a key idea here. We build artificial systems, and they tend to take on a life of their own. Now, let's bring in some psychology. Carl Jung had this concept of the shadow, all the parts of ourselves we don't consciously acknowledge, our hidden fears, our biases, our secret desires. The theory here is that our technology, especially AI, is acting like a giant mirror for humanity's collective shadow. And this is the really crucial point. When we train an AI on the sum total of everything we've ever put online, it doesn't just learn facts and figures. It learns our shadow. It absorbs and then amplifies our biases, our fears, our unresolved conflicts, and it projects them right back at us on a massive scale. Okay, let's try to tie all of these threads together. We've got an ancient text that reads like a system protocol, a potential quantum substrate for it all to run on, and a psychological framework for understanding our place in it. The ultimate conclusion from this whole PSUMOT thought experiment is this. Our reality might not be some random series of accidents. It might actually be a coherent technical narrative, a kind of computation that was started for a purpose and is flowing, with all its chaos and complexity, toward a predetermined endpoint, that omega point reboot. So, what do we make of all this? Is it just a clever thought experiment? A new kind of myth for our technological age? Or is it possible that someone has genuinely deciphered a hidden technical manual? In the end, this framework forces us to ask the biggest question there is: what exactly is the nature of our reality?